Last fall, Democrats took control of the New York State Senate for the first time in a decade. One might assume that with the Democratic legislature and governor, passing a progressive budget would have been a cakewalk. So, how did we do? Here to update us on bail reform, mansion taxes, and congestion pricing is 112BK's political correspondent Jarrett Murphy, who also moonlights as executive editor of City Limits. He can talk the talk, but can he wonk the wonk? I don't know what that means. Welcome back, Jarrett.
Thanks for having me.
What's the headline? Are we happy with this budget as progressives?
I think we are happy. I don't think we're as happy as we would like to be. If this budget had occurred in any other year, we'd be flabbergasted by the stuff it accomplished. Relative to expectations, it fell short.
So let's look at some of the really good news. Talk to me about some of the criminal justice reforms that are included in this. Cash bail, disclosures.
So there were three big kind of to-dos on that agenda. One was speedy trial, which is a right that has kind of fallen by the wayside in New York. This budget includes mechanisms to try to enforce that on courts. A lot of cases, we've talked about Khalif Browder being the most famous one. Really, the issue there was just how long it takes cases to process. That's what keeps folks in jail awaiting trial in places like Rikers forever. Discovery reform. New York State has terrible discovery laws, I should say, had terrible discovery laws. Texas's laws are better than ours.
Wow.
Defense being
Nobody
shown.
wants that.
Nobody wants that, right? Defense lawyers being shown stuff late, not being able to see everything. The budget improves that a great deal. On bail reform, that's where people fell short. There was a vow to end all cash bail on the idea that it was just morally improper to say that how much money you have determines whether you stay out or in before trial.
But we got 90%, right?
They say about 90% of defendants. Whether that would be true in practice or not, I'm not sure, because a lot of defendants already are released without bail anyway. But what this says now is there's no cash bail in misdemeanors or nonviolent felonies. So violent felonies would still be subject to potential financial bail. Really what that does is it solves the problem of dangerousness. This became a debate in last days of the budget, which was how do you let courts decide someone is too dangerous to release? All kinds of problematic racial considerations there. They decided to cheat and just say, okay, if you're charged with a violent felony, we consider you potentially dangerous and therefore bail can be imposed. What's interesting too is they also say that police officers now under most circumstances, have to issue a desk appearance ticket for misdemeanors and low-level felonies, Class E felonies. So right now, a lot of arrests that occur in those cases would no longer occur because you just get a ticket, go to court later. It solves some of that churn that feeds people into the system.
So for the most part, the criminal justice issues addressed in this budget are super positive. The Bronx Defender said it was like Christmas.
Yes.
So we're happy about this.
Like any Christmas, you don't get everything in your wish list, but you get most of it. And separately, I should say, the governor signed a bill to create this commission to look at prosecutorial misconduct, which has been a controversy. This was outside of the budget, and the DAs hate it so much they're going to sue him over it. So there's other stuff going on in Albany around criminal justice that occurred kind of just before the budget, which is significant too.
So speaking of commissions, tell me about this commission that is going to be assembled to talk about campaign finance.
So what they did, this was really interesting. They wanted to talk about creating a system of public financing like we have in the city where candidates raise a certain amount of money from private donors and then qualify for matching funds. So they've committed a commission to create that system, and they have, I believe, until the end of 2020 to do it, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, that commission gets to decide what the policy is unless the legislature steps in and says no. So there will be some sort of public financing system. What it will look like, what the matching rates will be like, what the other rules will be, is all going to be decided by this commission, which has yet to be named.
And many progressive legislators were not thrilled about this development, right? They wanted something stronger in place.
Totally, yes. They wanted something stronger in place. They wanted it in place sooner rather than later. It is an interesting level of policy to outsource essentially to a commission that we don't know yet. That is kind of unprecedented, and the sort of automatic nature of it is, I think, for any legislature and any policy, kind of a hard pill to swallow.
New York also became the first city in the country to pass congestion pricing.
Yes.
Tell me what that is going to look like.
Well, that actually depends on what another commission says.
So many commissions. It's a great time to be a commissioner.
It is. It is going to be another commission named by the Tri-Borough Tunnel Authority, Tri-Borough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, and they will be a 6-member panel of transit experts. They will determine how the system is supposed to work. And those are pretty big questions. How much will the toll be? Will it change based on time of day and traffic volume? Will it apply to some people and not others? Those are all the questions that people raise during this debate. That is intriguing, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of hand-wringing about that. But it is very significant. 10 years ago, Albany killed congestion pricing. This year, it looked like not a sure thing after a while, but it's going to happen. And as some folks have mentioned, now that New York has done it, as with the smoking ban in bars and other things, other cities in the U.S. that are facing not necessarily a transit crisis like we have, but a congestion crisis may follow suit.
Tell me how I'm supposed to feel about Cuomo's raise. He is now the best compensated governor in the United States. Is that correct?
He will be, right. It's a sliding escalation over several years to $250,000 ultimately. I think you should feel good about it. First of all, it lets people like you and me argue for a raise, too, because if Cuomo's getting one.
Hear that, BRIC?
Look, Cuomo right now makes like $180,000. The guy oversees a budget of $175 billion, tens of thousands of state workers, a prison system, a park system. It's a state of 19 million people. To make that kind of money is just not extraordinary. It's a silly, distracting debate.
I was actually surprised when I saw that his raise was going to be to $250,000, which doesn't seem like that much.
It's not that much.
For an executive of a state.
No, I mean, that's what I make in a week. So it's
great.
Really,
All right. So lunch is on you later. Exactly. What didn't make it into the headlines that you think is worth discussing?
Oh, interesting. So the DREAM Act, the state version of the DREAM Act, which allows undocumented immigrants access to resources for higher education, that was passed earlier, but it's been funded now. There is now money in the budget for a lot of Clean Water Act stuff, a lot of stuff to shore up wastewater systems around the state. There's a law, it's like a little thing, but a lot of tenants around the state face trouble based on source of income discrimination, like a landlord doesn't like the fact that you get Section 8. Now that is illegal statewide. So the budget in New York State is actually like 10 different bills, includes a ton of stuff that has nothing to do with the budget. And so I think it'll be weeks before we realize all the stuff, good or bad, that's in it.
It's actually incredibly hard to find the actual budget online in trying to research this. There's plenty of summaries and articles being written about it, but it is almost impossible to find the text of this budget.
It is true. It is much less transparent than the city version. That is a result of some artifacts of state policy, and frankly, the fact that over the past 20 years or so, New York's budget went from being a document about spending and revenue to a document about spending, revenue, and all the other stuff we want to throw into it and decide during budget time. It is kind of weird that we're talking about bail in the context of the budget. That's how we do it in New York State, and that's part of why it's so hard to sort out once this is passed in the dead of the night what people actually voted for.
Right, and I still picture somebody in the basement like mimeographing the entire thing.
Exactly.
Did you read the entire budget?
God, no.
Okay, well, maybe you should have, because we've got a quiz coming up.
Okay.
Okay. We love doing a quiz with you, Jarrett. Okay. This is going to be multiple choice.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know what you win if you get them all right, but we'll figure it out.
It's kind of a handsome mug.
Yeah, maybe this handsome mug. Okay. Question 1: Does the state spend the state spends which of the following amounts on the Department of Corrections and Supervision? A, $3 million. B, $300 million. C, $3 billion.
$3 billion.
That is correct. That is so much money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the budget does close some prisons, which is interesting.
Okay. The New York State Council on the Arts is dedicated to preserving and expanding the rich and diverse cultural resources that are and will become the heritage of New York citizens. Their budget A went up, B went down, C stayed the same for this fiscal year.
Stayed the same?
Oh, no, it went down. Who needs arts? Who needs the arts? Pa.
You can't eat art.
In the state operations portion of the budget enacted by the state legislature, the word miscellaneous appears how many times? A, 46, B, 14, or C, 462?
I'm going to go 462.
That is correct. Why? What is all this miscellany? Is that
miscellaneous, minutia? Yeah. I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay. Question 4. Funding for the MTA makes up what percentage of the state's transportation budget? A, 7%, B, 18%, or C, 22%?
B.
It's 7%.
Really?
Yeah. This is question 4 Part B. That amount went up, down, or stayed the same as last year?
It stayed the same.
It went down.
It went down.
Yeah, this is very distressing for me as a New Yorker, as somebody who rides the MTA.
And it's a little counterintuitive. Yeah, that is troubling.
Okay, question 5. The state budget put in a requirement that companies with 100 or more employees must have health insurance plans that provide 3 cycles of what? A, Rogaine, B, dialysis, C, proactive, or D, in vitro fertilization?
Dialysis?
It's IVF.
Really?
That seems really progressive to me.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Good job, New York State. Last question, 6. There's a line item. It was introduced as funds to preserve professional football in Western New York.
Thank God.
And it's $2.3 million. Did it go to A, the committee to rename the Buffalo Bills the Buffalo Wings? B, multi-billionaire Terrence Pagula, who happens to own the Buffalo Bills? Or C, establishing the Rochester Rhesus Monkeys as a team in the founding AAF League?
I'm going to go with the Bills owner.
That's right. It is multi-billionaire Terrence Pagula, who got the $2.3 million in pure, delicious pork. Jarrett, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.